Welcome to this video and podcast with my dear friend Chantal Landreville. I'm so grateful for you to join this episode. Chantal, thank you for being here.
I'm excited to be here. Finally, we get to do this together.
Exactly. It's a long time coming. And Chantal and I met probably almost a year ago, I would expect. And Chantal is an expert in love and relationships from a conscious creation level. So creating meaningful relationships, meaningful connections, going a bit deeper into the love story, if you will. And that's how we connected, truthfully, because just being conscious and being aware of the deeper aspects of our experiences, our human experiences. And love is a huge aspect of it. Love teaches us so much about ourselves. And it's a big part of our experiences of who we are and sharing our life with someone else, especially. So Chantal is going to go into her story in just a moment. I also just want to mention that we are recording this on the 8/8 portal day, which is very special. We didn't plan this. It just happened that way, which was really great. So it's a very beautiful day today, especially coming off of the new moon in Leo we had about almost 2 weeks ago, and then moving into the full moon in Aquarius this week. So we have a lot of energy happening right now, a lot around manifestation, creation. And I just uploaded a podcast today, which I didn't plan again on this 8/8 day, around love. And I just felt that it was time to share more information around my experiences, what I've gone through on the soul, I want to say actually past life, karmic kind of experiences I've gone through over and over and over again, what I've learned through that. And I just uploaded it today. So if you catch this video, I'm going to upload this on the 8/8 day, then I encourage you to take a listen to that. But this will also be recorded to my podcast via Spotify as well. So definitely check it out there if you're interested. But Chantal, okay, so let's get into this here. I'm very excited to chat about this topic, hear your experience, because I've been following you for a while. I know you've been going through your own journey of discovering more and more and more about love and relationships and people and dynamics and what's happening in the world with love and what's happening with people and all of these different layers and dimensions that we have to our own experience with this topic. So let's begin with your story and how you ended up being an expert in this industry and helping people through their love story.
Well, first off, I can't even believe before we were just connecting. I was like, it's the 8/8 portal. I can't believe, like, of all people I could spend time with online with today, you're the perfect person to do so. So I feel very lucky. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see what's going to come out of our mouths today in our conversation.
Exactly.
It's all about creation and channeling and just like letting that stuff out. So yes, my name is Chantal and I am a love and relationship coach. And I actually founded my program, Raise Your Love Signal, through COVID. Yeah, I've always been fascinated with love, dating, and relationships. And in my own journey, I was single for almost 20 years, not being able to attract the right person. Or I would say my problem was consistently attracting non-emotional available men. I was in a relationship, a very serious relationship, very young, from 19 to 26, and with an older guy. So I kind of saw him as I don't want to say a savior. I was moving out from a small town, going into a big city like Montreal. Everything was exciting, and he just taught me a lot of things I didn't know, everything about culture, music, food. So I was kind of like looking up to him, if that makes any sense. And at one point, when I started taking on my own personality, he didn't like it, because instead of looking up to him, I became this person that was, I was always very extroverted, take a lot of room in a space. So it became this competition where I was like, wow, this is not healthy, being in a competition. So long story short, I left the relationship because I didn't feel that was who I wanted to grow with. And I obviously felt that I needed to get to know more of who I was as a person. So fast forward to the dating journey, and as I was going through the dating journey, I was always fascinated and curious, as I mentioned, with everything that concerns and is around love, and why we struggle so much. Why can't we connect so easily? Why there's all these miscommunications, or not able to connect with people when you want to. So a lot of reading, a lot of self-development conferences, and just kind of always working on being aware and learning a little bit more about all of this kind of stuff. And when I finally got over not wanting to be single, because I did go off on a little bit of a banter for 10 years, just wanting to venture and experience life. When I finally decided that I was ready to settle down and wasn't succeeding, that's when I really hit rock bottom and said, okay, what's happening? That's when I decided to go diving deeper in my self development journey. And um, that's where I discovered how deep our roots are
Mhm.
on how we show up in relationship without even knowing. Meaning that everything that we're taught about love, our first examples are our parents. So whether they were good, whether they were bad, whether they were good, whether they were there or not, our fathers are our first love as little girls, and our mothers are our first love as women. So you're not even going in, you're not even moving into like being an adult yet, and a lot of this stuff is already decided for you on what you will think and what your belief systems are. So obviously I know you talk a lot about this, and we've both talked a lot about this, but when I finally understood this at 38 years old, Tara, that's why I finally understood what was the issue with me attracting non-emotional available men. I had to go do the deep rooted work. And what I told myself during that all of these years is that I was very lucky and fortunate to always be introduced to self-development, and I being curious. So there's not much I didn't try or experience. At one point though, I realized that I needed to integrate all of this knowledge and put it into practice, right? Because I was like almost becoming a bit of a spiritual junkie, consuming. And you can consume as much as you want, but if you don't do the work behind it, it's not going to service. And
Mhm.
when I hit my early 40s, long story very short, not really, I I had the bit of a crisis saying, here I am, single in the world. I only have my own little person to take care of. If What do I leave behind? Like I'm not going to have kids. What is my imprint leaving this earth, if that makes any sense? And I thought it was time for me to give back to community, because of how lucky I had been to have so many guides, angels, friends, whatever that may be, through the years to make me grow, understand, evolve. And I was like, people need to know this. We have access to so much information today, but at the same time, I don't know if you're like me, but when I go to a Costco or to a large, space store, I get overwhelmed. I'm more of a boutique thing. So I
Mhm.
remember when people would say, Chantal, I would ask a question, they would say, just Google it. And I'd start Googling, and I'd get overwhelmed, because what is right? What is wrong? So my whole idea to build this program was to give people access to the right tools with what you're going through in the immediate situation, and show you everything that is accessible to you. A lot of people don't know, especially when we talk about more of spirituality and depth and consciousness, everything that exists other than just therapy and medication and exercise. There's so much more in depth. And the cherry on the icing was when I finally did meet my man and started being in my relationship. I That took me to a whole other level of saying, wow, thank God I learned all of this stuff through the years and did all the work on myself to help me succeed in my relationship. Because it's one thing trying to attract and meet the right person, but it's a whole other being in a relationship that's healthy. And we've never been taught anything about being in a relationship.
Mhm.
So that's when I was like, wow, I need to teach this. I need to, and I like to say that I'm a student of my own teachings every single day. There's like this humility of always because we all fall off the tracks, no matter, what we think we know or how,
Well, and
so
when we fall off the tracks, that's where we get to learn more. So it's a
exactly.
continual evolution. Absolutely.
It's a continual evolution. Beautifully said. I totally agree. So that's how I kind of started. So it's basically all these years of experience and tons of money I've spent on so many different things that come together. And I feel that I've understood what it actually takes to not only develop your self journey and your self love, how to be in a relationship, and how to continuously work and grow and evolve together in a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And the self-love is, I feel, at the center of it all. I mean, you have to really understand yourself first. And a lot of people are either afraid to be by themselves or want to chase relationships or be really hard on themselves. What's wrong with me? Why am I single? The pressures of family, the pressures of society, the pressures of friends. Well, they're in a relationship, and it's easy to get lost in that. And then also look inward in a way of what's wrong with me, and almost in a way projecting that outwards. And I haven't met Jeff yet. Jeff is Chantal's partner, and I can see the relationship dynamic between you. It is quite beautiful. So, and also I'm turning 46 this year. So, just for those late bloomers who haven't found it yet.
Tons of hope, tons of hope, tons of hope.
I feel 35, so I don't feel like I'm in a rush by any means whatsoever. I mean, I'm on my own journey, and that's another thing too. We also have to realize that we are on our own journey. Don't ever compare yourself to anyone else. Don't ever be hard on yourself, because your story is different, and you go through your experiences to learn. And this is learning. It's all about going into the depths of yourself, and you understand a lot about you through love. I mean, this is a huge, huge, huge aspect of our existence, of us, and it hits us in the deepest places. So that's where we'll learn the most, is through something like a relationship.
Yeah, and that's why I always say timing and perspective on what happens or doesn't is everything. Because in my case, I would have met Jeff just 4 months prior to when we met, and I would have kicked him to the curb. I wasn't quite ready. There was still a small element of the puzzle missing for me to receive the kind of person I was calling in, and the kind of relationship I wanted. So I encourage people, and I'm happy that you said that we all have our own journey, is instead of saying, because I've been through it. I was that girl. What's wrong with me? I don't understand. And always making it about you. And sometimes it's not always about you. It's about, what do I still need to learn or understand? How can I grow from this? Or maybe you needed to actually teach something to someone. I truly believe that every single human being comes together connecting like how we did, me and Tara. I mean, wow, it's crazy. I mean, randomly, I remember
randomly, and it was perfect.
So I when you talk about love, I think the biggest gift that you can give yourself is be loving to yourself and what is happening or not, because we cannot control. And you're speaking to the biggest control freak ever. It's letting go of the outcome and trusting that if you continuously do the work and work on yourself, the universe will deliver when it's the right time for you, and deliver it to you like in a way you probably would have never imagined. Never.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And we have to be open, letting go of control, the expectations, the pressure. That's in all areas of life. And it's hard when we're not designed that way. We're designed, ever since we were young, we were put in a system, and we go by the clock, we go by results, we go by good grades, we go by performance, we go by like all of these timeline structures, everything. So it's letting go of something that's been so ingrained in us, and just trusting and being at peace with ourselves, with the process, and trusting the universe. Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
A big one.
It's not always easy.
It's not, absolutely not. No, but then you go through these moments and you look back, and exactly what you said. No, I wouldn't have been ready for the right kind of relationship. I wouldn't have been ready for certain situations to show up when I wanted them to show up. It's all perfect. It all happens perfectly.
Yes.
So let's go into, I have a couple questions for you that I'd like to run through by you, get your expert advice on. With relationships, so you've worked with a lot of people, helping them through their situations, their love stories. And what would you say are the common hurdles and challenges that the majority of people you work with are facing or face in today's dating scene? I'm very removed from it, but I can only imagine how difficult it could be. And also just from my own experience too, I'm sure some of those things still exist in the way that we perceive and move through love. But what advice could you give, or what are the most common challenges that you face?
I would say there's at least three of them that I see on a regular basis. One, it's really about, no one really understands what being in a relationship actually involves. We've been, as you talked about, how we've been raised to see love in a certain way. And the more I evolve in my own relationship, I realize how the dynamic of this whole rom-com Disney-fied idea about being in love is not, it's not the truth. And I've come to realize that love is not enough to sustain a long-term committed relationship. Not the idea of the love that we were taught, which is romance, butterflies, intensity. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what keeps a long-term committed relationship, with all the ups and downs of life, stress, kids, everything together. So I think people need to really think, and that's why I do that exercise of really making sure people get clear on what they want and
Yeah.
need from a partner versus the actual relationship, because we often we're so focused on what kind of person we want to date. It's like, I want. And I always say there's a huge difference between what you attract, what what you think you want, and what is actually right for you. They're three
Yeah.
different worlds.
Yeah.
And because of that, almost that triangle, we get caught up in continuously, because we think we have a type, right? We're often like very focused. No, I want a person to be like this, 6 foot food. I don't want it to, and it's often very self-absorbed, superficial thinking. But that's why making sure you think about things like values, on how you want to be treated, on how you see yourself growing and evolving in a relationship, versus having somebody that's fun, that's, fit, that loves to cook. I mean, yeah, those are great interests. And don't get me wrong, I was asking for them too, but relationships go much more deeper than that. So that's number one for me. People don't really have what I call the eagle eye vision of thinking long term. How am I going to grow and evolve in my relationship? How do I want to be treated? How do I want to be respected? How do I want to be taken care of? And what can I do for them as well? How can I deliver? So we often, when we start dating, we give everything, right? We want to court. How can I make this person? You want to seduce, you're in seduction mode, and like, but how are you able to actually deliver that on a long-term basis, right? And that's where people get lost, where they pretend to be people they are not really, to be
Right.
liked, to please, to seduce, or vice versa. They accept certain behaviors and things that they would never do a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, because they're desperate for love, or they really think they like that person, but they kind of get sidetracked between what they think they want, need, and is really right for them. So that's why, number one, getting super clear on your needs in a relationship is very important. There's a big difference between wants and needs. So I think that's the number one thing I see. And when I do this exercise all the time, it's crazy. People think they know what they actually want, but they really don't. Number two is people want love, but they're not ready for it. Their
Yeah.
heart is completely protected with this brick wall.
Yeah.
I was the queen of it, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. I was like, I want love, I want love, I want to attract it. But my heart was so closed off. I wasn't ready to be vulnerable and let myself go and accept and receive love. So I would say that's the number two thing I see. And then number three is feeling worthy of receiving. There's a lack of worthiness and accepting things that you shouldn't accept because you don't feel worthy of it. So those are
Mhm.
the three things that I've been seeing extremely a lot in when people are looking for love, and kind of self-sabotaging because they haven't done the inner work and
Yeah.
really really establish their own worth, step into their power to make sure they stay true to who they are and not get lost in the way. Pretending to be or accept certain behaviors or things. And it can be as simple as, a sport that you say, yeah, of course, I love it. Never pretend to like something that you don't, because it's going to come
Mhm.
biting you up the ass later,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 years down the line, and like create resentment. So you need to be honest with yourself and honest with the person that you start dating.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. What have you noticed? Have you noticed any changes or any, I would say, trends in a way of in the dating scene right now, in the online scene, in some of the, I would almost say trending topics or themes, if you will, around people dating, single people? What are the main things that you hear or you may come across as far as people running into their challenges, or what? I see a couple things happening in the online space. So have you noticed anything happening with regards to maybe frustrations or really difficult? And I know you're going deeper with it, and that's part of it, what you just said, but just on a more of a broad spectrum of what's happening right now.
So broad spectrum, definitely everybody's frustrated. Like I
Yeah.
had another call with a client a couple days ago, and as much as they try, her frustrations was like, men don't respond, or it's very, very short. It's hard to actually take it another step. And online dating is a lot of work. I realize it is, but also, you need to stop seeing it as being a lot of work, and you're looking for your mate. You're courting, you're shopping. And I kind of compare this to, if you were going to buy a car or a mattress, you'd be shopping around, right? So it's a little normal. So I think people are very impatient. We're
Mhm.
so used to living in fast pace and getting everything we want when we want, that we don't really take the time to, little things like not creating our profile properly, not
Right.
reading people's profile properly, which that causes
Mhm.
already
Oh,
a,
yeah.
a misalignment.
Mhm.
Learn to read between the lines. And if you can't invest in your own profile, like, what is it that you're actually wanting to attract? You're going to attract garbage if you put garbage in. It's just as
Mhm.
simple as that. And I would say so much expectation. That's
Yeah.
like, we go into dating wanting to check the list, find our person, instead of going into dating and seeing it as play, as fun, as adventurous, as I'm going to test my skills on everything that I've done wrong or realize I needed to change or modify or update, and get better at it and pay attention to little things. So that's I think the number one killer is people have these expectations. They haven't even met the person yet. They go into this date and they already feel or start imagining. And listen,
Mhm.
Tara, I was that person. I remember as soon as I meet someone, we'd have a little bit of a connection, and I'm sure you can relate. We start exchanging messages, flirting is there. You're like so excited. And then you go into this date. No, I'm not even there yet. And I'm already thinking, oh my God, what if we could do this together? I
Yeah,
want to do this. Guys, do
try
this.
being a Libra dating. That's all I have to say. It is the worst. It's like what you just said times 1,000.
You're
It's
going into
awful. It's
romance la la
awful.
land.
Oh yeah, no, it's bad. I've sabotaged so much in my life because of that. Just going full in right away, and then all of a sudden you take a step back and go, what did I just do? What did I just get myself into? Just having to backpedal a lot. And yeah, definitely don't rush it. And truthfully, the intuitive side is so important, listening to your intuition. And that's part of that self-development and returning back into self, or discovering self, developing that intuitive side so you can feel. But then you have to also be aware of your intuition versus subconscious programming or old
Yeah.
habits that you have. So
Yeah.
that's where a lot of that self-discovery is so important, because if you're operating subconsciously, attracting the same people and subconsciously, and using your intuition, but the intuition can be a bit skewed if you still have unresolved patterns that need to be healed or released. Yeah.
100%. And that's why that's one of the biggest exercises that I do after they're getting them clear on the vision is identifying what are your old limiting beliefs? What are the patterns that you used to repeat? What are the things you used to do in relationships that's always failed you? So if you are aware of what those are, because we both know awareness is 50% of the job already done. When you have the awareness and then you have these kinds of conversations and have the tools, it's easier for you to catch yourself and say, oh, okay, no, I'm either going into self-sabotaging or I'm going back to old ways when I'm trying to reprogram and rewire my brain. And here's the thing, right? Most of us, you're like me, we've done this work later in our lives. And that's why we're both passionate about teaching this. And I want to teach this to younger women and men as young as they can, because it's much easier to change your brain at 19, 18 than it is at 35, 40, 50, because you've been carrying all this stuff all your life. So when you go into dating and you've done these exercises, this is where I say it's great for you to put your skills, practice how did I am I doing the same thing that I always was? Like, or am I going to try something new? And you do them in baby steps. And I think I told you this story, but I'll tell you just for people to understand. I remember I was 5 months into dating Jeff, and I'm at a party, and I had worked with this woman that does progressive neurological brain stuff, to change and rewire your brain. So I saw her, and she's like, I heard you met this guy and that he's great. And I was like, yes, finally, all the hard work has paid off. And she tells me, you're totally going to go into self-sabotage mode. And I was like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? Like another layer? Are you kidding me right now? And I left the party feeling angry. I was like, I can't believe she actually said that to me. But 2 months later, sure enough, and because she had planted the seeds and I had the awareness, I realized I was starting to find every excuse in the book to leave the relationship, because I was like, this is too good to be true. I can't be worthy of this. Are you kidding me? So my old programming was coming back. But because I had done that work and I was aware of my issues and my patterns and my beliefs, it was easier for me to work through them and say, nope, no, 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 this is not happening. You're somebody else. You've done the work, so how do I work and evolve through this? So I totally agree.
And it's tough. It's tough, really difficult rewiring your habits, right? Because the habits are familiar and it's a safe place and we've lived there for years. And when we go back, it's familiar, we feel safe there, but it's not necessarily healthy. It's not necessarily the right place to be. So it does take a lot of conscious effort to do that, to work through those steps.
And that's why I always say, especially if you're dating and you're single, the best way to help you do these things is to always put yourself out of your comfort zone. So date people you typically wouldn't date. Explore, like, somebody, like, I'm just giving like superficial examples. Like if you never wanted to date somebody short, but then you're gonna date the opposite, or just to explore and see, because sitting in that comfort zone of safety and what you think doesn't always work. So especially when you're dating and looking for somebody, if you've done the same thing all the time, you need to change what I call the record, right? You need to try a new record on to get some different results and experience different experiences. If you stay stuck in your ways, you're not doing yourself any favors.
Yeah, exactly. Next topic. Let's talk about sex.
Ooh, one of my favorite topics.
Intimacy.
Yes.
This is something that, well, I'll let you lead this, of course, but I'm not an expert on it. No, outside of my own, whatever, I'm going to end there. But this is something that, of course, going back to what we're taught or not taught when we're young, and we have to figure these things out: interpersonal relationships, intimacy, being comfortable in our own skin, how to manage and navigate these intimate spaces with other people in a healthy way. Share some more information on that, because I know you've talked on this before, so I'm quite curious what you have to say about it.
Yes, it's actually, as I studied a few years ago Tantra, and when I was introduced to that practice, it opened my eyes to a whole other level, because as soon as people hear the word Tantra, they think about sex, right? But it's actually about sexual energy. And if you are, as a woman or as a man, struggling being in your energy, as we all know, we have feminine and masculine energy. For me, in those days when I was there, I was very much only into my masculine energy, not really connecting to my feminine side. And that's something that opened my eyes to a whole other level, to connect with that energy. And um, you know, we have been sex ed, but we've never been pleasure ed. And I remember being in a clubhouse room 6 months ago, and this woman that's an actual tantric teacher said, we are actually born from sexual energy, which is all about pleasure. But we, as adults, as we become adults, we forget to allow ourselves that play and that fun, and that can show up in all areas in our life. We're not just talking about sex. So when I started doing this kind of work, and even being in my relationship, I realized that love and sex are very much connected for very obvious reasons, but we've only been taught what I call the ABC. We haven't been taught all the letters of the alphabet, and there's so many different layers to it. And when we think about sex, we think about the actual act, but there are so much more. There's so much more to that. And especially when you include intimacy into that, we talk a lot about energy and being in our different energies, masculine, feminine. And if you take some tantric practices, I remember seeing the teacher, she was teaching us, like, if you do the proper breath work, you can actually orgasm to a whole other level without even touching yourself in any shape or form. You're just so connected to your sacral chakra. And I was just like, oh my God, I needed to explore and know more about this. So, and I would say that for your listeners, if you haven't watched this series, Sex Love Goop, that Gwyneth Paltrow has created on Netflix, it's an amazing, amazing series showing different layers of sexuality that exists out there, and how to kind of be more open. We come from a society where we've been shamed about it. And as I said, we've been sex ed. And most of our sex education about sex has been, don't get pregnant. Here's how to put a condom on a banana, and don't get STDs. So it's fear right away, and shame. And you should be doing this, and you shouldn't be feeling that way. Where when I think about sexual energy today, I don't even necessarily think about sex with my partner. I think about being in my body and connecting to that sexual energy. And it really helps me connect to my femininity, being playful. When we talk about flirt and just being able to walk into a room, and I'm sure you've experienced this many times, sometimes you'll go in a room and you just notice people. You'll notice, like, whether it's a man or a woman, that they just have this charisma. They have this, and sometimes they're not even good looking. They just have this je ne sais quoi. I think that's really being connected to that sexual energy in a way that you allow yourself to, what's the right word here? You really allow yourself to connect with your body to a way that nobody teaches us how to. And most of us in a relationship are taught about, as I said, ABC of sex. So it's like, okay, a little bit of foreplay, we're going to go into the act, and then it's like, did you come, did you orgasm? It's like there's a mission, right? It's like dating. You have to check it off the thing. And with the show, they actually showcase, like, what if that didn't look like that? What if we took it to, not having it to have a beginning and an end, versus like kind of letting it flow and play with it and explore. And there's this woman that's actually one of the women that's on there that's called Joya. And I had discovered her 2 years ago, and she does this sexual blueprint, a little bit like the 4 languages of love, right? Where it's like, how do you
Mm.
communicate what you want? Because we tend to give the way we want to receive. So she created this test, but it's on a sexuality perspective. And her thought process is saying, nobody is sexually incompatible. And because this is what often happens in relationship, we'll have sexual incompatibilities or think that we do, but it's because we do not communicate the same way, and we're afraid to have these conversations. We're shamed. Maybe, I want to be wrapped up, or I want to be like slapped on, and we're shamed because we don't think it's right. But what's right, what's wrong? It's just what
Mhm.
society has dictated. And that's why I say it's a lot like being in a relationship. We've been taught that, go to school, get married, have kids, buy the white picket fence. And today, you know, you could actually want to be in a relationship and not want to live with anybody and have his and hers home. And it's okay. You just have to meet the person that thinks like you and that wants the same thing. What I'm basically trying to say is that it's not in a plastic container. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be the
Exactly.
way we were taught it is. There's so much more to explore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the more you allow yourself to get to know this kind of stuff. So that's why I'm very, very, very curious. And that's why that show opens your eyes to a whole other
Mm.
level on a lot of different levels of availability of different sexualities that's available for you. And never mind the fact that you can be so much more creative and playful. Tara,
Mhm.
it's crazy. Like it sounds crazy, but I do believe that when you allow yourself to connect to that energy, you are definitely much more playful, much more happy. And it's kind of like you become more lighter instead of
Mm.
becoming, kind of compare it to like the irresponsible teenager to becoming an adult where you're almost too responsible and you forget yourself. Kids, they can play with anything and have fun with anything and just have this like, unbelievable way of seeing things. And I find that we disconnect from that. We have it. We all have
Mhm.
it in us. We just disconnect because we become disconnected from our bodies.
Yeah.
We
Exactly.
don't listen to all the layers that are available. And when you talk about intimacy, people often see it as or relate it to sex. And intimacy for me has nothing to do with sex.
Mhm.
It's nothing. It's feeling safe. It can be how you touch, it can be how you stare in each other's eyes, it can be how you experience trust together. And I'll go back to the best word for me. Intimacy is safety, where you just
Mm.
feel loved, safe, trusted, trustee, accepted. um yeah, so I went a little bit all over the place and on a rant
No, I
on
love
this, but
that. I love it.
I definitely think that there is tons to discover. And I I will say this, I think as couples, as people grow and evolve, right? We've been taught typically, when you get into a relationship, either everything is hot, heavy, passionate, whatever, and then it fades down. Some
Mhm.
people will have that connection that's like really intense, and they're in the toxic relationship, but because the sex is so good, it lasts forever. Uh, there's different things,
Mhm.
but I will say this, because if you've taken the time to think that you want a conscious relationship and you want to be in a long-term healthy connected relationship, what about growing and discovering that together as a couple and going through different stages and trying different things? you know you have all of your life together, and sex, what we've been taught, will come, go, stop. We all
Mhm.
have dry spells, uh hormones.
Mhm.
Woman, like,
Mhm.
there's so many different things that can come into play. But if you are both curious, and that takes work, obviously, to discover the A through the Z's of sexuality, you can live unbelievable, great things together, and even as individuals, for yourself. I remember doing this breath work practice that I was actually following to connect to goddess energy. It's tantric energy as well. My God, how I was not only confident in my own skin, I felt so powerful in many ways, and my creative juices were just flowing.
Mhm.
So that has an impact on not only on with you, but with your entourage, because people will get to benefit from this from you. So
Mhm.
my boyfriend, my
Of course.
friends at
Yeah.
work, my clients. So I think that there's a lot. If you don't know a lot about it, go explore, go read, try different things. There's so many of them, and this is something that I'm going to dive even deeper in my teachings, because I'm
Mhm.
definitely passionate about it. And I think that we've sadly just been so much shamed and like quieted about it. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think that empowering men and women to really be in their bodies and their desires from a young age is super important. It would help them on how they show up in every area of their lives.
Mhm. And it reminds me also, just listening to the energy aspect of it being open or closed. It's almost
Mm,
very similar to our own just expansive energy as a whole, not just on the feminine energy or masculine or creative or intimacy aspect, but just in how we create in general, from an
yes.
expansive place or from a limited place, from a
Mhm.
constricted place, from the oppression, the suppression, the repression, all of that, the lower density energies that we're starting to evolve from. But that it's interesting hearing you say that, because that's completely the same as what you experienced as the more expansive also as well, being more conscious, more aware, being more expansive, being open. And when we open our channels, when we open for more, when we're in a more expansive energy on the intimacy or just in general, we do become more creative. We create our destiny, we create our reality from that place. So very interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look more into that, but I definitely would recommend specializing in it more, or definitely pursuing it more. It's very fascinating.
Yes, I love it.
All right, so we'll go into best advice for women.
Best advice for women. Learn to love yourself and accept yourself 100% before even trying to find yourself a man.
Mhm.
Really, really step into your power. It's the best gift you can give to yourself and to the person that will come into your life, because I say this all the time: your man will only love you as much as you love yourself. So if you want to be in a healthy, balanced, loving relationship, start with you. Start
Mhm.
with you and accept all your flaws and your good and everything. It's just like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Amen.
that's what I would say.
Best advice for men.
Oh, that's a tougher one, only
Hmm.
because I find men men need much more help than women, and not in a way that
Hmm.
they need help. It's just it's not their natural habitat to go and seek help, versus women, where we're a little bit more curious and
Yeah.
open to this kind of stuff. And in my line of work, I always say we can't keep elevating all these women and not elevate the men as well. And I
Mhm.
think my best advice for men is be open. Be open to trying, exploring, and not getting stuck in that macho, um uh, I don't want to say egotistical, but just these traits of characters often that men can just be like this. It's just, this is the way it is and that's it. I think that the more flexibility you have with your mind, it will also help you in relationships long term wise, of saying, okay, this is happening, like how can we fix this? Because men are fixers one way or the other. But if you're not open to change, then you're not gonna you're not going to fix it. So I would say to men, just be open to exploring and dealing with your feelings,
I was going
because
to say, excuse me, something regarding the heart, I feel, with men too, because I feel for men, there's a lot of pressure to be in that masculine role all the time. And even from the healing aspect as well, with transformational work that I do, there's a lot of pressure, I feel, for being in that role and fitting in that role. But there's also a lot of power being in the heart and connecting with the emotions and connecting with the heart space. Yeah.
100%. And as you
Mhm.
said at the beginning of the show, love is, I remember hearing like love heals all back then. And I
You
was
don't
like,
really know it
whatever.
until you experience it. Yeah, it just sounds
Exactly.
almost just nebulous, or yeah, okay, it's almost like a romance song or novel that
Yes,
everyone talks
yes.
about. And mhm.
100% right. But now that we both understand it,
Mhm.
it really, really
Oh
does.
yeah.
And there's a lot more to gain being in a place of love than hanging on to anger, resentment,
Oh
and
yeah.
just like
Yeah.
pushing everything down. It's so much more empowering and light. And listen, we're here to live life. Like, don't you want to get rid of the baggage? And like, that's why
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, it doesn't always come easy, but it's so much more. I'm in such a great space now to I'm like, okay, versus having all this stuff that's like
Mhm. Yeah.
so yes, open the heart, men. Like, open your heart. And there's some beautiful things to discover when you have an open heart, because I always say behind every man, well, I didn't say this, it's a saying, and I do believe it, behind every famous man there's a famous woman, because I do believe that there's a power um, with two people coming together and having that openness amongst one another. Like, it's just
Mhm.
feeding off each other when you're,
Mhm.
so I, yes.
I like that. It's elevation. You elevate each other. It's not coming in from
Hmm.
a place when you're needy. You almost are sabotaging the potential of a relationship. But when you're in a place where you're strong for yourself, then you're in a place where you can support each other. You mutually support each other to grow and to keep
Yes.
growing through things together, more and more.
Hmm.
All right, best advice to heal from a relationship. And I know this is a big question, but even just a summary of how to heal from past relationships.
First off, what I would suggest, well, obviously time. You just need time
Mhm.
to let it heal. It's like grieving, right? You just need to let the different levels kind of work through. And I would say the second thing to do, journal about what you feel, you maybe your mistakes that you did, what you understood from it, what you don't want to repeat as mistakes going into another relationship. So kind of looking at the bigger picture perspective. And you'll be surprised if you do like I do, because I remember, sometimes when you're in the shit storm and you want to play victim, right? You just want to cry, you want to, feel sorry for yourself and have a self-pity party, and it's okay to have that. It's okay. But you don't want to stay there. You don't want to
Mhm.
stay there,
Yeah.
because that won't make you grow. So that's why I always say it's all about attitude and perspective. And I remember over the years, through the numerous guys I dated that didn't want me, I was always the girl that they would meet. I'd have a fling, and then, they'd leave me and find the girl that they would get married, have a kid with. And like always, the next person after me had it all. And here I was, like the little breadcrumb on the table that's like, psh. And today what I've done, because I'm writing a book on how I got to Mr. Right, but I could never write the book until I actually got to my Mr. Right. But I look back into all my relationships that came into my life, meaningful or not, and what I learned from them. And I remember thinking there was this one guy that I thought I was so in love with and that wanted to be with, and it didn't work out. And I look at it today, we don't even have the same common interests. The life that he is living today is definitely not what I wanted. Remember, between what you want, what you
Mhm.
attract, and what you really need is different. So it's great to do that exercise of bigger picture perspective, um, and grow from it. Always say, what do I need? these are always my go-to questions. What do I need to understand? How can I grow? Or maybe what did I need to teach to that person? And then forgive yourself and forgive the person for not working. And when I say that, for me, the only thing I can say is that when I was just saying, like, getting rid of the baggage instead of holding on to anger, resentment, it's so much heavier to carry around. It's just like, let it go and forgive yourself and forgive that person, that you guys came together for a reason, and it wasn't the perfect reason for you guys to both stay together. So time, journal, perspective, and forgiving for me are how to heal and get some help. Get some help, whether that's therapy, that's working with a coach, asking for a friend. There's so many different works.
Subconscious release work that I do
Yes,
as well. That's
yes,
huge, actually. I was just thinking that when you were saying resentment, because the main aspects, and if you follow my channel, I've said this many times, that we carry and harbor within ourselves, within our body and our subconscious, and it eats away at our body, and then it comes out in our outer world if we attract it, or in how we react to situations, is criticism, resentment, guilt, shame, fear, and grief. And those are the main ones that we just relive and relive in our outer world, inner world, and will just eat away at us. So yeah. And you said these words a few times, so I was thinking, yeah, exactly. And even just my own experience having some of these energies within, you'll end up replaying it in some kind of way in these relationships, unless you fully go into the depths of
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So yes, follow Tara. She does unbelievable work. I still listen to your stuff all the time, and it always helps me. It always guides me. So find what works for you and explore different. Sometimes you just need, it's like reading the perfect post, right? That you just needed to, sometimes is listening to your tarot readings, or like, so get the help, explore what's out there for you, and releasing is unbelievable. I still do it all the time. So it's helped me in my journey tremendously.
And like you said at the very beginning as well, awareness is key. Awareness is huge. When you start developing more self-awareness, you can create your own releasing and healing journey in a way. Yes, you will maybe seek a healer or a psychologist or coach, or find content or take a course or anything, but you are on your route of self-discovery, which is key. You can never go wrong with that. You can never go wrong with investing in yourself.
Never.
All right, so we're nearing the end here. I just want to finalize with one more question. What would you say some of the best methods for working through challenging situations when you're in a conscious relationship? You've met the right person, but you hit a brick wall, or you hit a wall, or you hit a challenge, or you hit something that you need to work through that may seem very difficult. What would be the healthiest way to move through it?
So I have many tips, and like I say, a relationship is a lot of, it's work, right? If we all have a career, and if you don't show up one day, in your cases, if you stop doing your videos, your business is going to crash and burn, right? So it's like you consistently need to show up and create. So in a relationship, it's the same thing. How can I show up today to make sure that I keep this healthy and I do my job correctly? So one, and through challenges, is have the willingness to want to work at things together. What I hear oftentimes in relationship that makes relationships fail, there's always one that wants more than the other to work on something. If when there's an issue that comes up, it's like, yeah, 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 instead of saying, yeah, 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 okay, what can I do? How can I help? And how can we fix this, right? So having the mutual willingness together to always want to work on things and be open to hearing and what the issues are. If you do not have that, you're setting up yourself already to fail. Two, communicate. Learn to communicate your needs, your wants and desires. Nobody thinks like you. Nobody's in your brain. We've all been raised differently. We all have different ways of our perceptions, hearing, understanding. So if you do not take the time to say what you actually want and need in your relationship, and then you're disappointed or you're pissed off because the person didn't deliver the way you had your expectation, that's on you. That's on you. So learn to communicate mutually your needs, wants, and desires in your relationship. I need you to kiss me goodbye when you leave for work every single morning. I need that. Well, your partner, if he's willing, will say, I know that that is important to my woman. I'm going to make sure before I leave for work to come and kiss her every single morning before I go. So it's little things like that. And number 3, I would say, it's, of course, I always have to do this, Tara. Every single time I lose my train of thought. On every podcast, on every live, on every clubhouse.
The first 2 were good. We're at the end anyway.
Every single time it happens to me, I got to stop jinxing myself. I would say no room for ego. When you're going through challenging times, stop focusing on the problem and focus on the solution. So sometimes that means stepping out of your ego.
The need to be right.
The need to be right. And this is often what happens. And the need to be right is often fed if you have not communicated your needs, wants, and desires. That's where resentment builds. So you need to make sure, so willingness, communication, and then let go of the need to be right, or ask yourself, why am I reacting the way I am, being reactive or being triggered, right? Because sometimes when we argue, we're triggered because we're not getting what we want, how we want, the way we wanted it. And it's often not even about your partner. It's probably because you didn't communicate, say, act, or did what you actually wanted to do. So I call it the out of body experience, when you're actually having an argument or a challenge and you're either challenging each other on a very unhealthy, toxic way. Ask yourself, how is this servicing my relationship right now? Because this is something I always say, a relationship is a threesome. It's you, your partner, and the actual relationship, which has its own entity. So if I act like this, if I show up like this, if I don't do that, how will this help my relationship? If I'm going to complain about how you didn't put the dishes away properly, is this really going to service my relationship? Or is it just going to add, like, fire on the oil for nothing? So is it really worth it? So that's why I say the ego often is the evil eye, because challenges are often little things, right? It's just little things of our daily routine in our relationship. So it's like, ask yourself, do the out of body experience. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this worth it? Is this going to service my relationship in any shape or form? And oftentimes the answer is no. So then you're like, you know what? Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. Don't be afraid to apologize. Don't be afraid. And do not, when you apologize or you say, I'm sorry, do not store it in the back to bring it back out later.
Right.
So forget it. It's like gone. Do not store and keep count.
Yes.
That's like keeping count is like no bueno.
Yes. Definitely. Good. Thank you. Thank you. This was wonderful. I learned a lot through this as well, which I love. And how do people find you? What's the best way? I'll leave a link in YouTube, but just where, website, Instagram, direct?
Yes. So my website, raiseyourlovesignal.com. And then my IG account is Chantal.Landreville. I recently started TikTok, but I'm running a little late, but I'm there as well. But my two main platforms is definitely IG and my website. You can feel free to just shoot me an email or a DM me on Instagram.
Yeah, reach out to Chantal. She's, well, as you can tell through this chat here, she's lovely, full of knowledge, ready to help, ready to guide. And your content is very inspirational, educational as well. More coming, I'm sure. TikTok, I can't wait to see you on there. That'll be fun. And on YouTube, I can leave a link. Podcast is a little bit more difficult, but I'll leave the information here below on YouTube for everyone.
Thank you. And remember this, everybody, every single person is worthy of being, receiving, and giving love, and a healthy love. It's such a great place to have an open heart. It's like I'm still like floating on how it actually is, because it took me 45 years to get here, and it's the most beautiful feeling in the world. It's just like, yes, I just want to say that.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, my friend, for being here. And we'll leave it here. If again, I'll leave information, contact Chantal, and enjoy this 8/8 day on the 8/8 and the week coming up with this full moon. Is going to be a beautiful time. Wishing you all the best. Thank you for joining, and take care.